Jurassic World Dominion was marketed as the end of the Jurassic era, but is it really over? Is there really no future for this franchise? We live in a society where we have 24 Fast and Furious sequels and 14,605 entries in the MCU, so it would be very unlikely that 6 movies is where this dinosaur cash cow is gonna go extinct. Every successful established IP gets spin-offs and sequels and prequels and all of that stuff because it is guaranteed money. And there are few franchises as successful as the Jurassic franchise, so it just seems very unlikely to me that they would retire the golden goose. Critics mercilessly chomp down on Jurassic World Dominion. The critic score on Rotten Tomatoes is lower than it is for any of the other entries in the Jurassic franchise. The audience, however, is largely responding to it positively. I've done a poll on my own channel because I was curious how my audience would rank Jurassic World Dominion among the other movies, and it actually turned out that most people chose the option where it was ranked either second or third of all 6 movies in the franchise. And considering that we're dealing with a franchise who has the Jurassic Park, which in my opinion is one of the best movies ever made, like not even one of the best dinosaur movies ever made, one of the best movies ever made. So like first place was always off limits, at least for most people. So for Jurassic World Dominion to rank either second or third is a very good score, and that reflects that even though the critics hate it, and granted a lot of the fans are really disappointed with it too, like a lot of the fans are and they're very vocal about it, but largely the movie is being received positively, at the moment at least. Some people, a small percentage of people, actually voted that Jurassic World Dominion is their favorite of the 6 movies in this Jurassic franchise. At the end of the day, critics might try to cut the legs out from under it, but this thing has legs for days. There is no stopping this prehistoric juggernaut. Jurassic World Dominion's initial box office earnings are only 3% lower than the earnings of Fallen Kingdom in the same time frame. And the word lower might be enough to trigger you already, especially if you did dislike the movie. It might already have you thinking, see, it's performing worse than Fallen Kingdom, so it's not doing as well, it's not actually successful. But Fallen Kingdom is a pre-pandemic movie, so it benefits from there not being this concern about the consequences of simply going to a movie theater for a night out. It comes from a time where you didn't have to think, hey, if I go to this movie right now, my grandmother might end up in the hospital. And that is the mindset that a lot of us are still in at the moment. So the fact that Jurassic World Dominion is able to get even in the same ballpark as what Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom did is very impressive, and it says a lot about the draw of this movie and the success of this movie. It might be limited to financial success, it's not a critical success, clearly, but it is a success. And it's only 3% lower, so it's not even that, oh yeah, they're in the same ballpark. No, they are running the race neck and neck. They are very close to one another. On top of that, and perhaps more importantly, is that Jurassic World Dominion earned more in its opening weekend than was projected by the studio, so it's making them more money than they expected it would make. And I don't have to tell you that to corporate people, that is very good. What I'm saying is the critics might want to pelt rotten fruit at the silver screen. Maybe they are right to, it's not a perfect movie after all, not by any stretch. But Rexy and her prehistoric co-stars are proving to still be massive, massive cash cows. Back in 2020, Jurassic World producer Frank Marshall already hinted that there is a future for the Jurassic franchise beyond Jurassic World Dominion. While it is made clear from his statement that there are no concrete plans, they are clearly keeping their eyes open for the future. Frank Marshall says that Dominion is only the start of a new era. When asked if there is still hope for more human dino action, Marshall replied, "Yeah, absolutely." And he continues to say, "The dinosaurs are now on the mainland amongst us, and they will be for quite some time, I hope." Then he goes on, "I obviously think that Dominion's going to wrap up this trilogy, but we're not resting on our laurels. We obviously want to make quality, good movies with great storytelling, great writers and directors, but we're definitely looking to do more in the Jurassic world. So on top of it just being a financial success and therefore it being logical that they'll want to continue making money, because which movie studio wouldn't want to do that, it is also very clear in Jurassic World Dominion itself that there are plans for the future. Whether or not they are concrete doesn't really matter, but if you watch the movie, you definitely walk away with this sense that there are so many opportunities left after that ending. It is quite an open ending. If you've seen the movie, you know that the ending begs for a continuation. And I will at this point go into spoilers for Dominion, so if you haven't seen it yet and you want to stay away from spoilers, I recommend that you do not continue watching the rest of this video. As Frank Marshall said in that quote, Dominion does wrap up the character storylines that they have established for this World trilogy, and even in a bit for the Park trilogy as well. So we have the very business-minded Claire Dearing, who's now a more maternal figure, and she gets a family with Maisie and Owen. And we also get a happily ever after, almost 30 years later, for Dr. Alan Grant and Dr. Ellie Sattler. So in that regard, in terms of the characters, Dominion is definitely the end. So I would say it is the end of that era. But even though it does a fairly good job with that, it doesn't actually resolve the key issue of the movie that we spent an entire other movie, namely Fallen Kingdom, setting up, and that was also introduced at the very start of Dominion in the news report Cold Open, and that key issue being dinosaurs and humans having to share this world, and that not exactly meshing all too well. It is something I personally critique the movie for as well. Even though I did enjoy the movie, what stuck out to me is that the movie ends the same way it begins. It still has that problem of dinosaurs being in our world, and it has been established that that is a problem, but that problem hasn't been fixed. So we're still dealing with that. We still have the struggles of that. Throughout the story, the threat of dinosaurs in the human society is kind of forgotten as they sort of undermine it and replace it with this storyline of the locusts threatening the global food supply. So at the end of Dominion, when you walk out of the theater, you realize that there is this huge source of storytelling that has been left untapped by Jurassic World Dominion, and that is that whole aspect of being confronted with dinosaurs in our world. And it's something I personally wanted to see a lot of since the finale of the Lost World Jurassic Park, and we didn't get that much of it in Jurassic World Dominion. Like, we get, the Malta scene is pretty cool, but most of the movie still takes our characters to a remote location where the dinosaurs are isolated from the human population. So yeah, I really felt like Dominion didn't deliver on that story, which is a shame because it is kind of the story that was marketed for the past years. It's also the story that Fallen Kingdom set up, and I very much realized that that is a story they can and should still tell. So you have to go back and think about Fallen Kingdom and think about what that movie was supposed to achieve within this World trilogy, right? It was setting something up, and they passed the ball along to Jurassic World Dominion, but Dominion kind of fumbled the ball a little bit. Not accidentally, they purposefully made the choice to go for the locust and, do your thing. But we still have that ball that still has to go somewhere, and I really hope that it is going to go somewhere and that we're going to get some form of Jurassic media, whether it be a movie or a series, that delivers on the promise that was actually made by the ending of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. In my opinion, it felt like Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was only an appetizer, and the main course is still coming, potentially in a new movie trilogy coming in a couple of years, or as I said, in a series, because we see that that is a very popular avenue for popular franchises to go down. We see that with the MCU, we see that with Star Wars, and it's a very successful venture that I can totally see Jurassic World Jurassic Park following in the footsteps of. In my opinion, it's only a matter of time until the next Jurassic project is announced. Whether it's even going to have the word Jurassic in the title, I would assume so, just for marketing purposes. But they did say it was the end of the Jurassic era, so maybe they sort of cornered themselves in that regard. But yeah, I'm just waiting for the moment that something is going to get announced in this regard. Now, I'm 100% sure that it will not have the same cast, as in Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt will definitely not return. They are very much done with this, and I don't necessarily blame them. I mean, this has been a really big commitment for them. I do think that we might have a possible new lead in pilot Kayla. I think she's very well suited for that. I think she is. She's sort of Owen 2.0 in a way. I think she's largely received positively. So I think we could have a new lead in her. But you know, it might not be a movie, it might be a series, it might not even be live action, it could be animated. I mean, if we look at the success of Netflix's Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, then you can see that that is also something very profitable for them to explore further. But I would personally hope for something live action. I think making a high budget series for a streaming platform would be an excellent direction to take the franchise in, even if only to bridge the gap between now and what might be a new trilogy on the horizon in, who knows, maybe another decade, just like how there was over a decade between Jurassic Park 3 and Jurassic World. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, but I would really hope that they bridge the gap with a couple of successful series. And I actually have a couple of ideas that they could explore in a mini-series type of format. I would personally very much like to see the adventures of Kayla, where she might take on a new role instead of being a dinosaur smuggler in the bad sense, that she might become a dinosaur smuggler to rescue them, to take them from these nefarious operations to what is now the protected Biosyn Valley Sanctuary, and we could see her struggles along the way. You know, we could follow the process of her and a team of new characters going to capture dinosaurs. Something could happen on the plane en route. I think it might be interesting that in the finale episode, maybe her plane crashes in the Biosyn Valley, which sort of strands her there and forces her to come face to face again with the dinosaurs that she actually rescued and flew over there herself in previous episodes. I think that'll be an interesting direction, and again, using that character. I mean, at the end of Jurassic World Dominion, we see her buying a new cargo plane, so it is setting up a continuation of whatever she is going to do. We don't know what she's going to do, but she's definitely not done flying yet. But she did indicate in the movie that she's done sort of working for the bad side of it. Another direction that I would really enjoy, and possibly even more so, is a Jurassic Park series which explores the life of Charlotte Lockwood on Site B. Jurassic World Dominion delves a little bit more into Charlotte Lockwood's life, Charlotte, of course, being Maisie's mother, Maisie's original, and it establishes that she grew up on Site B as a young girl. She grew up there among the scientists when they were working on, you know, making the dinosaurs, and she became a scientist herself. So I think that's a very interesting time period to explore in kind of a prequel style, because it takes us closer in the timeline to Jurassic Park. It actually predates Jurassic Park. So that would give us a ton of nostalgia of what we get to see there. We would see the creation of the iconic park and the setting of the movie that we all loved so much. And it would be fan service, but if done well, it would be really enjoyable fan service. And I would really enjoy that, not gonna lie. I would enjoy seeing the creation of Jurassic Park told through her eyes, her storyline. And I would personally prefer it if Isabella Sermon would return to reprise the role, but I really don't think that recasting it would be a deal breaker. I would prefer for Isabella Sermon to do it. She's recognizable, I think she's great in Jurassic World Dominion, but recasting it would not necessarily be a deal breaker for me. Now, to highlight her being a clone, and as I said, what I really want from the Jurassic future is to explore dinosaurs in our world, and what I suggested with Charlotte Lockwood on Site B, and, you know, making visits to the park being under construction on Nublar, that doesn't really give us that, and it also underutilizes the fact that she has a clone. So what I think would be really interesting is if the series sort of splits its time between Charlotte Lockwood in the late 80s being part of the construction of Jurassic Park and the bioengineering of the very first dinosaurs. And the other half of the time, we actually move forward and we move into the current era. And we have Maisie, who's at the same age as Charlotte back in the late 80s. We have Maisie in our current world, and she is dealing with the consequences of what was done in the past. She's dealing with the consequences of what her original was a part of. So she has to deal with dinosaurs threatening humans out in the wild. She's dealing with sad instances of dinosaurs being misused by humans. And I think that would be a really interesting dichotomy, and it would play off each other really nicely. Thematically, they could do something with the episodes where their storylines sort of reflect one another. Obviously not a direct tie-in, but thematically they could mirror each other. I think that would be really cool. I would be really into that. I think doing that would also give more purpose to this twist that Jurassic World Dominion put in. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of what Jurassic World Dominion did with Maisie and with Charlotte. I think it spent a lot of time on that wasn't necessary for me. But if they explore this in a series, at least the way they handled it in Jurassic World Dominion has a reason now, because what they were doing is they were setting up this universe that they will continue to explore. So for me, exploring that in a series would sort of justify spending that much time on it, and it's not that much, but spending time on it in Jurassic World Dominion and going through the trouble of sort of retconning that the old Lockwood grandpa cloned her. They retconned that into Charlotte actually birthed her like properly, but yeah, she is just an exact clone. All of that stuff, it feels purposeless at the moment, but if they use that as setup for a series, that would satisfy me. And yeah, like I said, that would justify that being a part of the movie for me personally. But honestly, they have a wealth of storytelling opportunities that they can explore. I mean, dinosaurs in our world, they can go every which direction with that. But I'm just really excited to see what they're going to do with the future of the Jurassic franchise. And I am 100% convinced that there is a future to the Jurassic franchise. By the way, speaking of the future of the Jurassic franchise, something interesting to note right here as a little end note. I didn't want to make a full video about it, but it has been confirmed by Colin Trevorrow on Twitter. Trevorrow? It rhymes with tomorrow, so Trevorrow. Colin Trevorrow confirmed on Twitter that there is going to be an extended Blu-ray cut of Jurassic World Dominion, and it's going to have an extra 14 minutes of footage. It was initially floating around that it would be 7 additional minutes, but including the prologue that they cut out, and the prologue itself is already 5 minutes, so even an edited down version of that would would just swallow up too much of those 7 minutes, so I was really not excited by that. But now that it has been stated that it's 14 minutes of additional footage, that does make me really excited, and I hope it makes you excited as well. So what are you doing? What's happening? Bunny! Anyway, so I'm really excited to learn what those extra 14 minutes will include. To wrap things up, I am excited for the Jurassic future, and if you are too, please give this video a like, leave a comment, let's share our excitement and make sure that the universe understands that we want more dinosaur movies. I want to thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time. Yeah, what am I gonna say right now? And until next time, let's hope this is not the end.